What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right. So before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out to Joe for his contribution to the channel, and I want to give a shout out to Aram for his contribution to the channel. Much respect to both of you for you showing love to the channel. And as always, I want to thank everybody that shows love to this channel and also shows love to me over on the Patreon. All right. So for the second game in a row, the Los Angeles Lakers beat the shit out of the Houston Rockets. But that's not what everybody's talking about. What everybody's talking about is the post-game comments by James Harden, where he pretty much just let it be known he wants to be out of Houston. Okay? So he pretty much said this. I'm trying to phrase it as accurately as possible. I think he said something to the effect of, I love Houston. I've done everything I can for this city, which is bullshit. Um, but we're just not getting it done on this team. And then he said something about um, we're not close to the Lakers. We're not close to any of these elite teams. We just don't have the talent. We don't have the personnel. And it's like we're just not good enough. Basically, like, what's the point of me keep playing here? Um, we just don't have a team that can field the winner. And at this point, I think the Rockets just got to trade him. Okay, just I know that they don't want to take any major losses with a trade. At this point, just trade him. Just get rid of him, please. Okay. Um, what he said is something that you might expect a player to say in an autobiography like 20 years from now. All right, when you're totally removed from the situation. Or something that you would say in confidant, you would say to a confidant, and uh, in a situation where it's off the record and nobody hears it, like us. To say this in a press conference, to me, is very disrespectful to your teammates, very disrespectful to your coach. And if I'm either one of these individuals, my coach, the coach, or the players, I don't want to play with this motherfucker. Fuck him. Now there's gonna be somebody gonna say, "Oh, you got all this smoke for James Harden, but you always got excuses for Russell Westbrook, and you're treating Kyrie Irving with kid gloves. You're a hypocrite." No, Russell Westbrook, you can criticize his on court play all day. I get it. Okay, you can. He does dumb things at times. So he makes bad decisions at times. He doesn't come through making clutch shots. Whatever. Even though it's been long established he's not a great scorer, great shooter, but you know, people still criticize him because he doesn't make a high percentage of shots. But one thing you won't find Russell Westbrook doing is throwing his teammates under the bus and acting like a prima donna and demanding trade. Kyrie Irving is going through his situation right now. I think he's going through an identity crisis. I think it's possible he's lost his desire and passion to play the game of basketball. Okay. Um, I think he's undergoing maybe a metamorphosis or something. But Kyrie Irving still didn't and has never done what James Harden did. which is to basically say your team stinks. That's what he did. He said your team stinks. His team stinks. And I don't think he's including himself in that. Even though in the last, 5 games, he's only averaging like 17 points on 38% shooting after getting off to a torrid start. So he's not, I don't think he's including himself in that. But this is the thing. It's not like you haven't had help, Mr. Harden. Okay? It's not like you haven't had help throughout your career. You're a guy that has had the luxury of playing with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook twice, but preferably when he was in his prime. You've had the pleasure of playing with Dwight Howard. You've played with Chris Paul. You played with Carmelo Anthony. You're playing with John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, but yet, somehow, some way, it's always someone else as to why you haven't won. You had the best team in the NBA 3 years ago with the Houston Rockets, the 65 win Houston Rockets. That was the best team in the NBA. And somehow, you guys committed the biggest choke in an individual game I've ever seen to go 0 for 27 from 3-point range. 0 for 27 and still only lose by single digits. My God. The truth of the matter is, James Harden is a player who is a tremendous regular season player, scorer, really. But in the playoffs, he doesn't get it done. And he's had multiple opportunities. And he's failed to rise above mediocrity, not only in the playoffs, but especially in circumstances where his team needed him to rise. People can talk about Kobe Bryant's field goal percentage or like an older guy like John Havlicek and his field goal percentage, but the fact remains that when their team needed them to rise up and step up, they almost always did. Okay? James Harden has never done that. Kyrie Irving has done that. And how? Should have won Finals co-MVP in 2016. Russell Westbrook at least was able to take, a very non-talented core of guys, at least to the playoffs. At least give him that. He at least was able to do that. James Harden has played with a guy that was two players, Dwight Howard and DeMarcus Cousins, that were once the best centers in the NBA. Russell Westbrook is a former MVP. Chris Paul is probably a top 12 all-time point guard, somewhere in that range, 12 to 13 all-time point guard, and is probably a top 5 all-time little man, if you want to include 6'3" and under. Okay, some people have it 6'2" and under. He's played with Carmelo Anthony, one of the great small forwards, probably a top 15 all-time small forward, and Carmelo Anthony. So this guy's had talent, It ain't like he's Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett, when he was in Minnesota for the most part, except for that 1 or 2 year window, he didn't have anybody. I could see Garnett complaining. I could see Adrian Dantley complaining and wanting to leave Utah after 5 or 6 years because he didn't really have any help in Utah. I could see certain players complaining. I could see, Allen Iverson had a great opportunity to complain. He didn't. Not really. What the fuck is James Harden complaining about? All of your failures lie upon you, and you not being able to rise up to the kid. You can't even fucking show up on. You couldn't even show up in shape, man. In shape. That's another thing. Even though the media kind of, excuse me, even though the media is kind of starting to turn on him a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Finally, notice how different it was when James Harden was MIA and how the media was treating it versus Kyrie right now. The first thing they were saying was mental illness. Mental illness. How the fuck? I mean, look, man. At the end of the day, he does. Look, Kyrie can be a guy that's confusing and can be frustrating sometimes. But at the end of the day, I don't know what's going on with him. But it definitely seems like it's something. It's some type of internal confliction he got. James Harden just wanted to fuck off, and he ain't no conscious motherfucker. It's a dude that's walking around with a Blue Lives Matter gator and shit. Okay, and I don't buy that. I want to be traded because the owner's a Trump supporter. That's bullshit. You had no problems with this guy being a Trump supporter 2 or 3 years ago. I don't want to hear that shit, man. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, trade James Harden. They should trade him. And that's another thing. They're talking about trading him for Kyrie Irving. Why? What sense does it make having a John Wall and a Kyrie Irving on the same team? That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know, man. But all I know is they need to trade James Harden somewhere. Okay? Don't reward this motherfucker. Why would you trade him to the Nets and kill that team even worse than what the struggles they already have? You know what I'm saying? The one thing I'm a little bit irritated with, the one thing I am irritated with Kyrie Irving is I don't like how him not being on Brooklyn is by default is presenting Kevin Durant with a larger load. And Kevin Durant's coming off this Achilles injury. And, hopefully everything's fine. You know what I'm saying? I know he's probably fully healed, but still, you would prefer for him at least the first part of the season to kind of play somewhat limited minutes, like 31, 32 minutes tops, maybe, and blowouts. Projected, you think would be some blowouts. Him be able to play like a half or a quarter, excuse me, or 3 quarters he could rest the four. But now, because of the struggles, you know, Kevin Durant's playing more minutes. And I just hope he holds up accordingly. That's the only real problem I have with what Kyrie is going through right now. And the fact that he's allowing the media to dictate what's going on with him without him being more vocal. But back to James Harden, fuck him. Um, you know, This is what I always say, man. Always this. When these players come up on their first year of a big contract, look how well they play and look how well behaved they become. But once they secure that big contract, notice that's when their bullshit starts. Peep that out. I remember that happening with Gilbert Arenas. Remember when Gilbert Arenas was balling like a motherfucker? And then he signed that what was then a huge $111 million contract. I think that's what it was. And that was a big contract back in the mid 2000s. And soon afterward, that's when he started acting like a fucking idiot, having a gun in the locker room and all this other dumb shit. You know, you just tend to see that shit right after they secure a big contract. Look at Draymond Green. This motherfucker's secures this $100 million contract, and can this motherfucker score 15 points anymore? I see he's averaging 4 points a game. Four. Isn't it the same dude that scored 35 points in Game 7 of 2016 Finals? Everybody was comparing him to Charles Barkley and saying he's better and he's one of the top 5 power forwards of all time. All this ridiculous nonsense. So that's all I got to say, man. Tell me what you guys think.